Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank each and every single one of you for joining us. If you just take a moment to just introduce yourself and the school that you go to.
Assalamu alaikum, my name is Mansoor Sayed and I am a senior at the University of Texas at Dallas.
My name is Hamza Bhatti and I am also a senior at the University of Texas at Dallas.
And I'm a junior at UTD.
Assalamu alaikum, my name is Rida and I'm a senior at UTD.
So, how long have you all been a part of UTD's outreach committee? Until
I guess you could say since its inception, since the beginning. Yeah.
Hamza.
Saying I've been there along with Mansoor. I've had the honor, alhamdulillah.
Day one.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Yes. Sure though. That's good.
Wait, when you guys say outreach committee, this is gonna be cut from the board memory, I hope.
We don't do that. It's one take. Go ahead, it's fine.
When you say outreach committee, are you guys including Saddam or not including Saddam?
I kind of just included it.
Yeah, same.
Oh, okay, alright. Well, I've been on the UTD MSA outreach committee for a year and a half now.
Alhamdulillah. And Ibn, how long have you been a part of the committee?
Alhamdulillah, I roll with Hamza.
Okay, alhamdulillah. That's good. So I want to hear about your passion for dawah. I want to hear about your training in the dawah. I think I came in like for a little bit of that, just a little bit. We talked about like some phones, and we talked about chairs. What else did we talk? We talked about a few different things. You know, I've taken on many accents, many different circumstances, assumed many different identities to convey the message of dawah, and I've seen you all thrive and also suffer at dawah tables, alhamdulillah, on campus. Mansoor, what would you say like your passion for dawah is, your greatest experience in kind of like learning about Islam or dawah, like in the time that you've been a part of the committee, and then like an experience that you had in dawah, good or bad, that really transformed your outlook of giving outreach.
So I guess we'll start with passion. From that side, I think for me personally, it was always a learning experience. I always came to dawah, like, actually originally when I first came to it, it was kind of just like, kind of out of the blue.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking to like, be more involved kind of in MSA, kind of meet with the Muslims a little bit more. And a couple brothers were getting together and starting this Salam outreach kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, wow, this could be a great learning experience, at least for me, since I really, when it comes to speaking about my deen to non-Muslims, that was something that I just didn't do. I was just like, I just was myself, and when I came to classes, I would talk about classes, and that would be it, right? But I wouldn't really show my Islamness in any way, really. And so that was, I guess, my first experience in actually going about that. Training-wise, I had actually taken a course like around a year prior to that with Sheikh Kamal al-Makki, and he had come to UTD. I think it was actually before I actually joined UTD.
Black belt of Shahada.
Yeah, well, his course was actually amazing. SubhanAllah. I learned a lot there, but after that, I wasn't in college at the time, and so I didn't really implement any of it. Most of it kind of just like faded away until we actually started this initiative, and then said you came along and you gave us that pretty good training thing at the Al-Harris spot. Alhamdulillah. So
that was the one about socio-political philosophies, or?
I think it was before the one we were doing with the Beyond Hifz class.
Acha.
So I think that was the one that was done in the summer, and there we kind of went over like a lot of different things.
Yeah,
it was a lot.
Now.
Experience-wise, I guess you could say it's kind of like an interesting, I wouldn't say it's a good experience or a bad experience, more like just an experience. But there was a time when we were attending the Dawah booth, and I was kind of just trying to start a conversation, and a sister and like her non-Muslim friend had walked by, and they were looking at the pamphlets, and I was trying to like probe with a couple questions, see how they responded to them, and one of them, she responded with like saying that, oh, okay, I'm a Hindu, I don't really practice my religion, and I was like, so she asked, or she wasn't looking into different religions, but she was like, yeah, I don't really practice my religion. And so I asked her, okay, so what would you think about like converting to another religion? It was kind of out of the blue, which was really interesting, as actually the sister who had come with her to the booth, she kind of like took it back. She was like, why are you asking that question? After that, the discussion kind of like devolved and just kind of like fizzled out. So,
Right.
Alhamdulillah, it was an interesting experience, at least.
No, Jazakallah khairan for sharing. Now, Hamza.
What were the 3 questions again?
So the first question is like your passion for dawah, right? And then something about your like learning and the training and stuff that you did in dawah in your time being involved in the committee, and like an experience that you've had on campus when it comes to the dawah training, or your actualizing your dawah training, or an event that you did, or an experience that you had giving dawah on campus.
Okay. So the beginning thing, passion for dawah. So a long time ago, I heard a hadith that anybody who guides a person to an action. I'm paraphrasing this. Anybody who guides someone to an action, they get or word similar to it or a copy of it. So ever since then, I've been like one thing that I've always been very excited about is like if you guide someone to Islam, then everything that they do falls under the fact that they're doing it because they're Muslim.
Right.
So you kind of get like a copy of that. Inshallah, I don't think I'm a very good person, so I'm hoping that by even helping people get a little bit closer, I can maybe run into somebody who will be a very great person, and inshallah through that, maybe Allah will have mercy on me. So that's where my passion for that will come from. Second one's training or the things I've learned, right? So I never really took dawah training before, and I was kind of always just had the philosophy that my actions speak for my religion. So I would just try to be like a better person that I could, and make sure that my friends like saw me praying, or that every now and then I would be Muslim, do things that only Muslims would do in front of them. I wouldn't necessarily hide it, yeah, I gotta go pray. All my non-Muslim friends, they know I pray, they know I read Quran. So it's not like something I hide. So that was kind of how I approached it. But then we took our classes, and I kind of learned that it's not just you don't just not say anything at all. You gotta sometimes maybe mention it, especially if you want someone to come to Islam. You can't just sit there silently and be like, oh, I'm gonna go leave, be Muslim, I'll be back in 5 minutes.
Right. And what's like your best experience that you've had when it comes to giving dawah? Or worst, whatever you prefer.
So worst experience was actually what came to mind, unfortunately.
That's fine.
And it was towards actually the beginning when we started trying to give dawah on campus. I remember that we would go around and we would be talking to other brothers and sisters and trying to ask them, get them to know a little more, or see if they were interested in learning more. And what happened was that 2 brothers got into a bit of an argument while they were talking to somebody else, and they one of them yelled at the other, and it showed me that we really are untrained. This is way in the beginning before we took training or anything, and it showed me that we're here to give dawah, but we ourselves don't know how to be da'is. So alhamdulillah, I'm happy that now we've taking all those trainings, and we got you, alhamdulillah, on board to help us out and be like a guide for us, so we don't do things like that again. Inshallah.
Sure. No. Go ahead.
So I was initially introduced to the concept and idea of dawah by the star of understanding my Islam, Ustad Ursan, and Ustad Ursan, he kind of put me on, and he was like, it's, you can get a lot of pleasure from doing this. I was like, let me come on and help in any way I can. I'm not the best, communicator, I can't talk. I'm not comfortable talking to people I don't really know. So I was like, there's other ways I can facilitate this dawah, right? Whatever my strengths and skills are, let me go ahead and contribute to them. Since we're just starting out in terms of my experience, right? We were just starting out giving dawah, and we would do dawah boots and this and that. And sometimes we wouldn't have enough people, or people wouldn't want to do it. So
Right.
I would find myself in positions where like I had to give dawah, and that's not my strong point.
Mm-hmm.
So there was this one time, the infamous abortion dawah move.
Oh boy, was I part of that one?
Yeah, I think you were there. I had to go build up by you. So
Was that the one with the whiteboard?
that was
The flow chart. Oh no. Okay, all right, go ahead.
So we learned what Islam says about abortion beforehand, and there was a clean article that I sent to everyone, and everyone read it. I think.
The 19-page one.
Yeah, the 19th page.
That's
So I was there to the side because I'm not trying to do this. So a guy comes up to me and he's like, "What is Islam's stance of? Does Islam support abortion? Yes or no?" I'm like, "Bro, it's not that easy. I can't just give you a yes or no answer. It's like a little bit more nuanced than that." And as I'm saying, he's like, "No, it's a yes or no question." It's like yes or no. I'm like, I don't know what to say. Then alhamdulillah, you came to bail me out.
Yeah, I remember that. That was a good time. That booth with the student union, man, that had some of the sisters, mashallah, it was a lot of energy. There was a lot of energy around that one. But what would you say, like, from your training or like learning about how to give dawah, was there anything in particular that stood out to you, like in what you learned?
I think the methodology is really important, like what your end goal is. Like, you don't want to go in there and be like talking about the different sects of shares. It's like you just kind of want to get straight to the point.
That's right.
Because I've seen that.
Yeah.
Many times. So it's just like you kind of want to have your methodology, you want to have your path, like, the path that you're taking when talking to a person, like that down before you even start.
Sister.
I joined the outreach committee because Brother Hamza actually approached me saying that they needed sisters for the booths. And so at this point, I have watched like a few Muhammad hijab videos, and I'm like, oh, okay. I was like, let me check this out. So I signed up. After my first booth, I realized how much I did not know and like how much training I really needed. And so we scheduled a training with you. And honestly, like, alhamdulillah, I'm so glad we were able to do that and all the other trainings that we've had since then. But I guess so that's kind of how I started. That's how I joined the committee. But my passion for da'wah comes from my experiences with the deen, alhamdulillah, where, I was born Muslim, but there was a time in my life where I wasn't really sure what I was doing, and after having to navigate through that, and just realizing the sense of purpose that I get by being Muslim, and just how hopeless life can be if you're not Muslim, I think that really pushed me to be like, oh my God, like, people need this in their lives.
Word. Okay.
SubhanAllah. And then from the things that we learned in our trainings, two things that really stuck out to me, and have stayed with me since. The first one was just how simple the message of Islam is. Like, it's just Tawheed, La ilaha illallah, and just focusing on that, and how much we can complicate it. And I feel like carrying that, even when it comes to answering questions, it's about Islam, is so important. Even if you're not standing at a da'wah booth, right? We get questions all the time, right? We're not necessarily always at da'wah booths. We get questions, and we as in like Muslims, Muslims get questions outside of da'wah booths too. And so realizing that at the end of the day, the message of Islam boils down to there's, La ilaha illallah, there's none worthy of worship except the creator of everything that exists. And so that was so powerful, because at that time I was like, wow, like, Islam is so complicated. Like, how is everyone supposed to follow this thing? Life is so complicated. What am I supposed to do? Like, there's so much happening. And so hearing that had a huge impact on me. and how I perceive the religion, how I perceive da'wah and things of that sort. And it really helped me navigate conversations, future conversations with non-Muslims and Muslims. The other thing that really stuck with me was that da'wah has to come from a place of compassion. Like, you have to genuinely care for people. This is not a competition. It's not about ego, right? It's not about your quote-unquote shahada count.
Right.
Right? Like, we're not out here competing for who gets the most shahadas, because at the end of the day, Allah is the one that guides. We just do our part. And so, like, sitting down and internalizing the fact that as Muslims, we believe in a hereafter, and we know there's consequences to our actions. And so that should push us to then try to convey this message to our loved ones and the people that we care about. And if it doesn't, then do we really, as a person, do I really believe in a hereafter if it's not, if my actions aren't reflecting that belief, if that makes sense. Like, if I'm not motivated to convey that message, do I actually believe that I'm going to be held accountable for my actions? And do I actually believe in a hell and a paradise and things of that sort? In terms of experiences, okay. So this was actually not at a da'wah booth, this is outside of that. I received a question recently from a friend about what jinns are and what dua is, because she saw a video on Instagram about jinns falling in love with humans and causing problems for them.
Oh man.
So having to figure out where to go with that question was interesting. And I think, like, this could lead into a greater conversation about whether social media is the best place to be talking about certain topics. And yeah, alhamdulillah. But also, it really, it kind of goes to show that as Muslims, what are we really telling non-Muslims? Like, are we really telling about jinns and dua? And is knowing about jinns really going to prepare them for what's to come after we die?
Yeah. First off, we thank each and every single one of you for sharing your passion, sharing your experience, and we ask Allah to accept from you and everything that you've done. This conversation is really complex, From Mansour's desire to be able to articulate his religion, this is something that all of us, in some way, shape, form, or fashion, have always felt the need to do. But one thing that we see is sometimes the way we learn Islam complicates the way that we convey it. Because what we learn about our religion is not necessarily what we need to say to everyone in every single situation about our religion. We go wrap around to that point. And, Hamza, your passion really resonates with me, because the thing that inspired me to give da'wah is how I ended up giving da'wah, or how I ended up getting da'wah. A brother who was in a rehab facility took shahada from a brother who was at a masjid, who that brother from the rehab facility traveled halfway across the country, from a friend of mine who had also managed to meet him halfway across the country, got shahada, who then when he came back to that side of the country gave me shahada, and I met the brother who gave the first shahada in the masjid. And I told him, he was actually just talking about it in passing. He was like, there was a brother at a rehab facility, and I was like, is his name so-and-so? He was like, yeah. I was like, 6 years later, he gave da'wah to this guy who was an atheist, traveling across the country with his girlfriend, and that guy took shahada, and his girlfriend took shahada. They got married, and they both came back and talked to me about Islam, and I got shahada. And he just started crying. He just started weeping. He just, subhanAllah, just started crying. I was like, that chain narrated is deep. I need to give you some camels like that, man, because I knew what I was doing, and may Allah accept even just an inch of it, but it all goes back to him. This quiet man in the masjid, you may never know his name, but Allah knows his name. It could be that Allah decreed that I became Muslim just so that my deeds could be added to his mizan, to his scale of good deeds. I was like, bruh, if it's like this, I'm gonna be on a camel journey, bro. And we say camels because like this is the analogy that the Prophet ﷺ gave in the hadith narrated by his nephew Ali ibn Abi Talib, that to guide one person to Islam is better than having red camels, which if you were to translate that into USD, that's like putting money down on a Bugatti, you know? So that desire to bring people in to add to your scale is a really important passion. And then other times we just kind of get thrown into it. Hey, you know how good dawah is? Bro, you should give dawah. We can use some sisters. We can use some sisters to come give dawah. Okay, we're just gonna give dawah. Yeah, I got this. I see Muhammad hijab. You're finished. So we come in and we just drop it. Hey, I know little Zachar diets. Every now and then I dabble into Muhammad hijab. I got this, you know? But that point about wanting to seek the good is good. You know, having proximity to good is good. But I want to finish up with this point. The way that we, the things that we, look, Islam is we don't have like secret knowledge. You know, most of us don't. we don't have like secret knowledge. It's not like, you know, the Pope. We don't have figures like that in our religion. We don't have like people who have, most of us don't have who are extraordinary and secret knowledge. Like that's not a common thing in our religion, right? So because of that, anyone can look up and understand and learn about essentially anything, whether they're equipped to learn it or not. Yeah, I go find something about everything because it's open source material. You know, I can dive headlong into Sahih Bukhari and power through all of the chapters in it and come out with a hadith that people have probably never heard before. And we all have access to that book. We all have access to the Quran. We all have access to its explanations. Most of the time, the only barrier for people who don't take a traditional route in learning, the only barrier for them is Arabic. If you can Google it, you can find it because we have 14 centuries of academia. But sometimes we don't realize as Muslims that we are like rocket scientists compared to the person that doesn't even know La ilaha illallah. And we become so consumed with talking about rocket fuel and aerodynamics and the implications of gravity and physics on getting the rocket off the ground that we forget that the goal is to get them to space, proverbially speaking, you know, metaphorically speaking. We become so consumed with the process and the mechanics of our own religion because we can learn it inside and out at its most simple scale of being the proverbial rocket to its most complex scale of all of the energy and mechanics and stuff that goes into sending it upwards into space. That we forget that our goal is to take people beyond the ship, the rocket ship, you know? And that's where you get people talking about jinn. We had, well, some of y'all probably wonder, why did we stop the why Islam questions? You know, ask why Islam. Some of y'all probably wonder about that. I'm going to tell you what happened. This brother in Mankind sent us a question about music. He said, I know it's haram. And he sent a fatwa. He's like, I've been looking up music and I'm just trying to understand and jinn. He's talking about shaitan and all this stuff in the question. I'm like, bro, he knows this much about music and its fiqh and the spectrum and shaitan and haram. But he doesn't even know what Islam is. What are we doing? What are we doing? So, bearing that in mind, what advice do you have for your non-Muslims, non-Muslim brothers and sisters in Mankind, and your brothers and sisters in the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? So, each of you, inshallah. Starting with Mansoor. Actually, we start with Sister Red this time. We rotate this now.
Okay. So, for my non-Muslim brothers and sisters, know that Islam means to follow the Islam means to attain peace and purity by following the commandments of the creator of everything that exists, and anyone that does that is a Muslim. So you may be Muslim and not know it. And to my Muslim brothers and sisters, oh man, subhanAllah, like this deen is such a blessing. For those of us that were born into Muslim families, for a lot of us it may seem like a burden because we we just view it as a list of do's and don'ts, but it's so much more than that. So honestly, sit down and ask yourself why you're Muslim. And if you have any doubts, if you have questions, ask those questions. Address those doubts. Because, you know, a non-Muslim might come to you and ask you a question. Like, if you can't articulate your deen, how are you going to convey that to someone else? If you don't know why you're Muslim, how are you supposed to convince someone else to become Muslim? How are you supposed to convey that message? So, yeah, at the end of the day, it's a journey, right? Like, not all of us, we don't know everything about everything. It's a journey. So take it slow, be compassionate with yourself, but start the journey at least. Be on that journey. And may Allah just help us all in.
In my limited experience and very limited knowledge, I'd say that if someone asks you a question, you know, like related to the deen, I'd say my number one advice would be, if you don't know the answer, don't answer it. You know, defer them to someone else. Because I've seen a lot of cases, scenarios, whatever you want to call it, where someone just confused someone, like bamboozled them with all sorts of stuff that wasn't even related to their question. Going into like, I don't know. They went into all sorts of crazy stuff, like the thing that you mentioned about the gym. Like, like we don't want to confuse non-Muslims and drive them further away than what's, you know, what Islam is really. And I guess stick to the fundamentals and just keep going like that.
Right. Just have a quick.
Yeah.
Okay, so kind of advice I would give to Muslims, brothers and sisters, is that for one, like Sister that mentioned, we kind of grew up seeing Islam as a list of do's and don'ts, but it goes much deeper than that. And especially if you go talk to like a person of knowledge, you'll see they're not just like a walking, finger gun, this halal, this haram, do this, don't do this. Like, you get to like see a whole new aspect. Like Islam has so much humanity in it, so much mercy in it, so much good advice. Like even if the more you stick around these people, the more practical advice you find out they know from Islam. Like a lot of us just think Islam only revolves around your prayer, but Islam has so much. There's a guide in everything, and the more you learn the Islamic aspect of anything, that thing will become easier for you, whether that be studies, work, anything. And for non-Muslims, I would say, don't just randomly ask, your Muslim friends about Islamic questions, because like was mentioned before, most people that know a little bit of Islam, it's like rocket science. They don't realize how much they do know, and they're explaining, like high-level physics or whatever to somebody who's done, elementary math. Not saying that you wouldn't know the knowledge, but it's a sphere of knowledge that you're not used to.
Right.
So the best people that always support for that are scholars again, or people who have trained to know how to explain these things simply, or at the most basic level.
Exactly.
I guess for our non-Muslim brothers and sisters, I'd say, don't expect every Muslim to know everything. We all have our limits. We all know a certain amount, and don't be surprised when they say, "I don't know," or "I'll go look it up for you," or I can forward you to another better resource.
Right.
Since we're all human and we all have our mistakes, we all have our downfalls, and Islam is a perfect religion practiced by imperfect people, as you mentioned many times. So definitely see the humanity in ourselves, in Muslims, and in the faith.
Right.
And to Muslims, I'd say the same. Some of us we're all struggling. We're all trying to do our best to follow the perfect religion. So don't feel bad. Don't overburden yourself with too many things. Take it step by step, and trust in Allah and do what you can. Right. So it's all about doing what you can. It's not about overburdening yourself. It's about doing what you can for the akhirah, right? For this life and for the akhirah. And may Allah make it easy for us to follow this path.
Sometimes our non-Muslim brothers and sisters in faith will see a non-answer as the absence of an answer, right? But the absence of evidence is not the evidence of the absence. Sometimes we find ourselves in a position where we feel like because we can't respond that we're doing a disservice in conveying the message of Islam. But as our sister had mentioned and as you all had helped her remember, Islam means to attain peace and purity by following the commandments of the Creator of everything that exists, and whoever does that is a Muslim. And at its fundamental core, when it comes to the campus da'wah, a conversation, inshallah, that we hope to continue beyond this, this type of dialogue really needs to be simple. The problem is we oftentimes on campus run into very complex concepts, like abortion or like LGBTQ+, or dialogues on eschatology with atheists, and a lot of different things. It gets really tricky, but when we work together, we learn together, we can grow together, and we can convey the message of Islam together. Jazakumullahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.